thing. Actually, bonfires, big hot topic issue. David Nazar, you've been all over that story. Apparently, there's some wealthy beach property owners that want to do away with bonfires. Why?
Well, Elizabeth and Rick, there's obviously a new twist to this story because there is a local state lawmaker who's really waging war with the South Coast Air Quality Management District. Of course, we know it as the AQMD, the agency that cleans our air, lets us breathe, keeps it clean. Well, he and many critics, as you mentioned, are saying that basically the AQMD is in the pockets of these rich folks living along the coast, Newport, Corona Del Mar, wherever the case may be. Now, he is reigniting the fire on this story. Beach bonfires, they're one of our favorite pastimes, enjoyed across Southern California from Santa Barbara to San Onofre.
It's a primal experience, it's a tribal experience, the gathering of the masses around the fire with the surf nearby. You get goosebumps thinking about it and talking about it. It's why millions of people come here. As a columnist, I get notes from all over the world, people that come from Italy and Poland and Spain. They say our favorite thing we did was the beach bonfire.
Last July, with lots of publicity, the AQMD agreed not to ban the bonfires. Instead, the regulatory agency board voted to require they be 700 feet away from homes and spaced farther apart. The AQMD was concerned that the wood-burning smoke could be a health hazard. Rosalind Ladowdy agrees. Ladowdy lives in the seaside community of Corona Del Mar, right near the beach. She wants the fire pits gone.
It is a real scourge to this community. Inhaling particulate matter and smoke from these fire rings is really a health hazard, and I'm totally against keeping them. I think there are other ways to allow people to enjoy the beach without endangering their health.
Last summer, the AQMD stated publicly in a resolution that none of Southern California's 765 fire rings would be removed. Travis Allen isn't buying that promise. Allen is a state assemblyman representing Huntington, Sunset, and Seal Beach. Earlier this year, Allen introduced his own bill that would stop the AQMD from ever removing the fire rings in the future.
It would put statutory protection into law that said if you tried to remove a beach bonfire, you would have to go through the California Coastal Commission first.
However, Allen's bill was killed in Sacramento before it was even heard. Why do you believe the bill was killed so quickly?
The AQMD, at every step of the way, they sent up Barry Wallerstein, the executive director, and he had marching orders, strict marching orders to kill the bill. They hired two very high-powered lobbyists in Sacramento, and through their backroom dealings, they were able to get the bill killed.
Allen, who's running for re-election in November, says he'll introduce a new bill this January.
We will get protection in law for beach bonfires.
Do we even need to reintroduce new legislation if the AQMD is on the record as saying they're not going to ban these things?
Oh, absolutely. There's a pattern of deception, and actually it's a culture of deception within the AQMD where they say one thing and then they do another. The AQMD is a body of unelected bureaucrats. They've entirely ignored the will of the people. The AQMD has absolutely overstepped their bounds and completely abused their power for a personal agenda. And the personal agenda is them protecting the wealthy landowners.
AQMD Executive Director Barry Wallerstein refused our request for an interview. However, he sent us this letter explaining the fire rings are an important public health issue that should not be used as a campaign issue for politicians seeking re-election. The letter says in part, quote, "Numerous studies have demonstrated that wood smoke is a hazardous air pollutant containing many of the same carcinogens as secondhand cigarette smoke. The pollutant emissions from just one fire ring are equivalent to the secondhand smoke from some 800 cigarettes." The letter also says when our agency adopted its fire ring rule, it included a resolution plainly stating that AQMD would not further regulate the fire rings in the future. End quote.
The AQMD is an out-of-control agency that's operating above the law. They need to be stopped.
And Travis Allen means business. By the way, what really is infuriating him is the fact that these AQMD board members have been appointed. Some are on the board for decades. He wants to see them elected. He also wants to see term limits. He's even making the claim that the chair of the AQMD, Mr. Burke, has had some sort of backroom dealing back in 2006, 2007, to where they would kill term limits so he could continue to get appointed. So we're kind of looking into that. We'll see.
And as Aaron, you know, this bonfire thing has raged for quite a while now. I really get the sense, I can't think of two agencies that are more powerful in the state than the AQMD and the Coastal Commission. I get the sense that these two agencies are not on the same page on this issue.
Well, I think the key here is that the AQMD rule doesn't limit the use of wood burning fires. They just have to be spaced a certain distance away.
After much change, at first they were going to ban wood burning all along the coast, and I think you guys stepped in and said that's too far. So now they backed off.
Right.
But you're
So
saying
who's more powerful then?
Well, I can't really speak to the power of the agencies.
But at some point, right? And of course, I was out there and we were talking about this, David. I also spoke with Alan, and it was interesting because there were a number of assembly members and other politicians locally who kept saying the science doesn't really support that. All of a sudden, we've had bonfires for how many years? And now it's dangerous for your health? Because there's a small number of wealthy beach property owners in the Newport Beach area that just don't like the smoke.
Well, the city council and the homeowners have been trying to get rid of those fires, those beach bonfires for a long period of time, and just recently this wood smoke issue has come up. But
in other words, in the past, what were they saying? Why were they trying to get rid of it?
Well, anything from there's too much noise, or there's too many parties, or there's traffic, or there are parking congestions.
And then suddenly, lo and behold, they come up with health. AQMD jumps on it. But the Coastal Commission really did, your agency raised a lot of questions about what the AQMD was doing.
Well, any change in the use there would require a permit. So we've been telling the city all along, if you wanted to move these things, if you wanted to change it from charcoal or from wood fire to charcoal, it needs to come through us. It needs a permit. And so that's the process that we're going. We are working with the city right now. That's what we're doing.
David, impressive that you actually got one of the neighbors down there who doesn't want a bonfire in her neighborhood.
Listen, there are many folks in Corona Del Mar, Newport Beach, Newport Coast who don't want the bonfires. And let's not mix any words here. They're honest about it. They're saying, look, we don't like the smoke, we don't like the smell, we do feel that it's harmful to our health. But many of them do admit, we don't want a certain element on the beach. We don't want these folks here. We want this backyard to ourselves. They believe they own the beach. It is their backyard. But I do want to ask you, Aaron, I mean, honestly, let's look at this objectively. Do you feel that these rich folks were simply saying, we don't want you guys on the beach? Or do you feel that there was some credible evidence that there was scientific stuff and science to prove this smoke is harmful? How do you really see it?
Well, I think the end result would be, look, there's the experience of burning a bonfire at the beach after spending a whole day at the beach with your family is just different with wood. To sit around a bonfire that's smoldering coal, it just doesn't have that same experience, that same recreational experience, and that's where we step in. That's where we can try to make a difference and protect the public's rights. And you know, the people that live down, or that come and use these areas. It's lower income folks, it's inland folks, it's people of color. And so there is a big issue there. And you know, the cost of paying for a bag of charcoal, it's a lot more than wood. And so it does sort of push out some folks.
I feel there's an implicit bias, as you said, because they kind of want to keep that background, you know, their backyard to themselves. But it's interesting.